We had a great challenge from Amalia this week, so thanks so much, Amalia, for submitting this challenge. So we're looking at a restaurant where we've got some menu items and some orders from customers, and we want to reshape both of those inputs, join them together, and answer a couple of questions. So if we take a look at our menu input to start off, we've got all the pizzas listed in one column, and then their price and the ID of that pizza, and then similarly for pasta and for the house plates as well. So our first job is to restructure this. So we're going to use a pivot step, and we're actually going to make use of multiple pivots in this instance. So the way that I went about this was to keep it on columns to rows as the pivot, because we're taking those column headers and we want them to be in our field rows now. So our first pivot that we do is around the IDs. So we just use a wildcard pivot for ID to pick up all of these fields. Next, we do the prices, get them all down into one field. And finally, we do the house plates, the pasta, and the pizza. So just drag those over. And that leaves us with these 4 columns with our IDs in pivot 1 values. We also have our price then in pivot 2 values, and the name of that dish in pivot 3 values. So then we can just do a little bit of column renaming to get rid of the ID from this field that we had in pivot 1 names. Then I just use an automatic split, because then it takes off that space ID because it's the same in every row. So give that a go, or you could write a calculation to say a replace calculation, for example, to get rid of ID. Many different ways you can do it, but then I've just renamed those fields. So that's our first input cleaned up. Let's take a look at the orders. These are already looking not too bad. We've got sort of a row per order at the moment, but all of the item IDs are joined together or concatenated together, if you like, by a hyphen. So our first job there will be to split those out and reshape our data. So we're doing on the order field a custom split on the hyphen and splitting out all those fields. And then we're doing a columns to rows pivot again, searching for the word split so that we get that all down into one field. And then we can filter out the nulls, where obviously some customers order 1 item, some customers order 4 items. So there might be some nulls when we reshape the data in this way. So we just filter those out. Then we're joining these 2 streams together. We're joining on the ID and the item ID. And we're applying that rule where on Mondays it's 50% off. So the way that we do that, our first calculation that we're going to use, we're going to just use the date name weekday on order date to get our order day. This will return Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And then once we have that information, we can apply that discount for Mondays. So we're saying if the order day is Monday, then return the price times by 0.5, 50% off. Otherwise, leave the price unchanged. And that's how we apply that discount for Mondays. Now we can go to looking at each of the questions that we have for this data set. So we want to know the total sales for each day. So we can see that Wednesdays, for example, has the highest sales, whereas Mondays have the lowest sales because of those discounts that have been applied. And that is our first output for the challenge. Our next output is looking at which customer orders the most items. So we group on the customer name, and then we use that number of rows that is always present in our aggregate step to work out how many items they're ordering. You could also do a count distinct of the item ID, whatever you want to do. And then we can see that we have this customer here who is ordering the most items with their order, and we could just filter to only keep this row of data, but it's probably more dynamic if we add another aggregate step straight after to say what's the maximum number of items, which is just doing the max of that number of rows field, joining that back on to our aggregate step here, and then we have our output 2, where we have our number of items and our customer name. So hopefully that was a fun challenge for you, quite straightforward. Thank you so much for watching, and please reach out if you have any questions.